This week on the OneCast, we're going to talk about Trey dominating a team tournament solo, my experience as a Bassmaster Marshal, and some congratulations to an absolute hammer on the Elite Series.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's going to be a bad day.
What is going on, OneCast fans? Welcome back to the OneCast. Glad to be back in the studio for more reasons than one. We'll get into that in a minute, but before we do that, we got to make sure we talk about those that make this possible. We couldn't do it without the support of OneCast Fishing. You can head over to OneCastFishing.com, use the code TheOneCast to check out, save you some coin, get your long neck hooks, weedless nets, snagless jigs, soft plastics. Soft plastic season is here across a lot of the country, so it's a good time to stock up and get those long neck hooks and the Neds and all that.
And I do want to mention that the Memorial Summer Day sale, the last 2 weeks in May, over Memorial Day, we'll be doing 20% off. Ooh. So that OneCast code's not going to work then.
Yep.
That'd be got to make a living, but if you're listening to this, that'll be open up for Memorial Day sale too.
Well, there you go. So if you need stuff now, right away, you can get it. If you want to hold off a little bit, you can save a few extra dollars. That's OneCastFishing.com. Code TheOneCast, all one word. Also, Carolina Waters. We couldn't do it without our friends at Carolina Waters. They've got some new products just came out. They got some UPF gloves that Ben's holding up there. They've got some new buffs, a couple different colors. I'm a snob when it comes to my UPF gloves, and I put them on tonight for the first time, and I really like them. They were super comfortable, tight fitting. The fingers don't get loose where it feels like they're going to get caught up in the reel. And also the buffs are the right kind for me. I like the stretchier material that's not necessarily as form fitting and doesn't feel like you're going to be strangled. So you can get those at CarolinaWatersNC.com. Code TheOneCast, all one word. Got a brand new UPF hoodie that'll be up on the site for the general public here soon. It might be there already, actually, by the time this episode comes out. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you grab some other gear right there. They got hats. Ben and I rocking. Trey's got the PVC patch hat on tonight. Our friends got the gloves on.
Got the gloves on. They do fit.
They're very nice.
Yeah, they're very nice.
And I need a new pair because mine smell like they just came out of a dumpster.
Yeah, so do mine. And so, yeah, make sure you check them out. CarolinaWatersNC.com. Code TheOneCast, all one word. And
we've been
while we're protecting skin, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, we got to protect the eyes as well. And you can do that at Hobie Eyewear. HobieEyewear.com is their website, but if you use the link that's in the description, it's in our link tree, that's in our bios on all of our socials, all of that. Order, you end up getting those glasses for about $83. Floating frames, they do float. They do protect you. The Sightmaster for low light conditions I've talked about it every episode. The Sightmaster Plus are absolutely game changing for low light conditions. If you have not got you a pair yet, definitely use our link, head over there and grab you a pair of the Sightmaster Plus lenses. Even if you only want to wear them during low light, I recommend getting you some of the other lenses for the other light conditions because they're super high quality and affordable. But that's up to you. If you're not going to do that, definitely get you some Sightmaster Pluses.
Absolutely. It wasn't until right after the team tournament on Lake Gaston for the Fishers and Men that, Mikey and Nick, they were crowned the champions of that. And I think within 10 minutes after the tournament, Mikey went on and used our link and ordered him a pair of Hobies because, those were the tournament winning sunglasses that he wore for the day. You're welcome, Mike. But, we got the raccoon eyes going on. There's nothing more important than just protecting yourself. Like, it's great to be outdoors. Obviously, we live out there, but I think my season has been better because of Hobie Eyewear, truly, just because I've been able to see fish, right? So definitely do what Pete said. Go check them out. It's not just a koozie that we have right here that says Mossy Oak Properties on it, but it's a good buddy of ours. And if you're listening to this, go back to the last episode. Is it the last episode?
Yeah, last episode. He's a cat fisherman, catfish angler. Learned a lot of information.
Absolutely.
Because the most I think Trey and I have ever done is really cast off the bank, maybe a trot line here or there, and it's a different game when you're going for those big what'd you call them, the whisker biscuits, which
is actually a piece for a bow.
It's an arrow rest.
It's an arrow rest. But yeah, so Eric's awesome dude. He's a good friend of the show, and he's also a partner as well. So if you guys are looking to get yourself a nice piece to link you up with another Mossy Oak Properties broker. You can shoot them a text or a call at 936-494-9686 if you're interested. Obviously, you can shoot them an email at eschwind@mossyoakproperties.com. Eric has tons of land, both with homes located on the land and vacancies and things like that. So if you're looking to get away from that concrete jungle, hit our buddy Eric up over at Mossy Oak Properties. I am glad to have everybody back in studio. It seems like it's been forever. I know we always say that, but like when you go a week or two without, the triangle
that we didn't have a Fishing Friday.
We didn't have Fishing Friday.
And so good thing we're here now, because obviously this Friday we won't be having Fishing Friday, because
right.
this Saturday we'll be doing the Take the Warrior Out event. So we're all going to be out there taking veterans out. So and then Friday night they've got their
mixer,
their social week,
and then we won't have one tomorrow from when this airs, because Trey and I will have our pre-tournament meeting for our last derby of the year with the
last regular season event.
Yes, our last points event.
Yep.
So we'll be at the meeting for that. So,
but that means the last Fishing Friday of May, and I forget what day that is.
I don't know.
It might be the 30th or 31st. But the last
31st,
the 31st. So that last day in May 31st, we'll be doing our giveaway for the month of May. So
that's right. And that's a Swamp Fox Customs prize pack, bunch of hand painted baits and some hand poured soft plastics, and then a pair of Hobie eyewear glasses. So it'll be of your choice. We'll get you linked up with our friends over at Hobie Eyewear.
You can use that term, hinked up.
Yeah, hinked up.
That's fine.
That means linked up with Hobie. They'll get you some of those.
Hobie linked up, hinked up. I like that.
Yeah. So make sure you come watch us Fishing Friday. We go live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, across multiple socials. The OneCast Fishing, Pete, and all. So make sure you go do that. And if you haven't done it, make sure you give us a review on whatever podcast platform you use, and DM or email for whatever your link you want, as long as it's OneCast Fishing, the OneCast, Pete, Trey, me, and we'll get you entered in that giveaway. So that's all you got to do is just leave a review. Hopefully it's a good one.
But if you're new to the show, we've been rolling this thing for over a year now. And if you're new to the show and you like this kind of thing, like that's what Ben's talking about, leave that review and get yourself entered into some pretty great prizes. And also thank you. If you're listening or watching to the show, this channel has grown significantly. We would do it even if we had 0 followers, because we love to run our mouths about fishing, which is what we're going to do tonight. So by the time y'all are listening to this, the Take a Warrior Fishing, veteran event is going to be concluded. Also, by the time you're listening to this, you're going to know who the Elite Series
MPFL,
the MPFL champion is.
Stop number 2 on Lake
Hartwell. And we're definitely going to talk about some Elite Series stuff here momentarily. So
I was and then Patrick Walters, just won Elite Series on Murray.
I was going to ask, how do you guys want to go? Do you want to talk about Mayo first, or do you want to talk about Walters and then your experience down there at the Elite Series event?
I mean, I think there's an elephant in the room. I've got a lot of messages and calls if you're on our socials about my experience down there. So I think we'll just get it knocked out of the way. And I'm gonna preface this: if you're here to try to hear who the angler is, I'm not gonna say it because they are gonna come on and we're gonna tell the story together about what occurred. It was awesome. So we went down there and they, Lake Murray, my wife and I, that was what she wanted to do for our anniversary. So shout out Chelsea. That was an awesome anniversary trip, even though we were sort of separate all day, but then, we got to spend the evenings together. So it worked out, but it was cool. We got down there. They ended up canceling day one or postponing it the morning of, because they had some pretty nasty storms coming. And I think it was more the wind than the storm, because they were calling for sustained like 30 mile an hour with gusts in the 70s. So Bass made a call like an hour before blast off to postpone day one and push it to Friday, which just moved everything a day. So it's cool. If you've never fished a bass event or done this, they text everybody the night before with all the information, blast off, partners. For the opens, it's your, who your co-angler, or, as a co-angler, who your boater is going to be. In the elites, they text everybody, let the marshals know who they're going to be paired up with. So we went into day one, and I got an angler from the north. If I say it, some of you know, because you know who I was with. So I'm not I'm not going to say who I had what day because I know there's a little confusion there, but you could probably, both my anglers are from the north. So I had an angler from the north, and he had a pretty good day. He didn't have a whole lot. It was a late boat draw, so he wasn't going to get on the herring stuff. But he had some interesting stuff. He's coming on the show as well here in 2 weeks. We'll kind of talk about what he found because it's something he was going to take back to the north. But he targeted a little bit of some shallow stuff in the morning. Not necessarily a herring spawn, but just where some fish were feeding in the morning. And he threw a fluke and caught 5 pretty quick, but it really wasn't anything. I mean, it was just 5 in the box. And then he kind of went around and he targeted fry garters, looked for a few bedfish because he had some on beds. But then he targeted fry garters, but deep fry garters. They were in like 8 to 10 foot of water. And he would look for he was using forward facing. So if you don't like that, too bad. He would find those fry balls like around dock edges. And what he found was a lot of the bigger males that were fry guarding would go deeper. A lot of the fry guarders we see up shallow, he kind of figured out are the small on the smaller side. They might be 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, decent fish. But when he slid off and he found those deeper ones, they were 3.5 to 4.5 pounds, which is a big difference, in the Derby. So he went around and targeted those. Ended up with a really key, like 4.5 at 3:30 because he was doing it 4. Caught that at 3:30, so that was super cool. Kind of a last minute fish down, and he's like, it's always good when you can call like this, and he held on 2 up. He's like, well, there's guys checking in. He's like, that always makes you feel good.
Yeah, dude.
So we had that, and I think he ended up with 17 and some change, and he was in the cut after the first day, so he ended up making the top 50 cut, making it through the second days. That night we got our pairing. So I got another northern angler, super excited, met them, had a ton of fun, pre-blast off, ran to the first spot, and he caught 5. He had 4 pretty quick, including 2 the right ones. He had like a 3 and a 4.25. Fished around in there for a little while. I do want to talk about one thing. I was one of those that were kind of like on the fence about when the elite guys come and they're trying to do their job and locals are out there whacking on fish and sitting on every point. And even if they're not fishing, they'll just go sit on it just so that an elite guy can't fish it. We saw some of that. Folks, if you're listening, like, I understand you want to go fish your home lake. It's one weekend, maybe every 2 years. The amount of work that these guys put in to get there and then to find those fish, break down the lake, do all of that. And then the disrespect that I saw from people, like blatant disrespect, talking. We had a dude hold a fish up out of his live well on one point to show, which apparently happens quite frequently.
Interesting.
Just massive amounts of disrespect. So remember, think about your job. And if somebody were to show up and completely throw a wrench in your job, and then show you how much better they are or block you from doing that or try to prove they have a bigger, whatever they want to prove they have a bigger of just because you're there doing your job.
A bigger rod?
Yeah, bigger rod. Just think about that. If they come to your home lake, like if you can go to another one, cool. If you see them coming to an area, they're not going to catch all your fish, man. Like, it's okay. You can slide out of the way. Remember, these dudes living, they've got families. And I know I was the same way. Like when MLF came down here, I was like, well, I've got a Derby. I've only got one weekend. But after spending a day in the boat with 2 days in the boats with those guys, like a whole different level of respect for what they do and how somebody's sitting on a point, not fishing just to block because you don't want them fishing your hot hole. Just it's massively disrespectful. So just think about it if they come to a lake.
You say that, I think there's, it sounds like those people were very much habitual line crossers, crossing the line there.
Yeah.
I mean, hold up fish when the other guy's fishing, blocking points. It's one thing that you're out there. It's your only day you can get off. Right. You're out there fishing, different side of the lake. They come up, you move out of the way, But what you're talking about,
like just blatant, passive aggressive disrespect.
And we're not talking like a group of kids on the boat that a dad's fishing with, right?
No, we're talking about like some grown men.
We're talking like you came to my lake and I could beat you on it.
And that's what the angler explained to me. He's like, we see it at every lake we go to. These guys will come out here just to be able to take a picture with a bag and say, I beat so and so.
Right.
Even though I wasn't fishing against them, I caught more weight than them while they were here.
So you don't walk out on the football field when, like, you know, an NFL team is playing football and you don't just start, you know, passing the ball to each other, right? Like, it's kind of the same. I mean, I get it. It's public water. And so, like, there are people that are in circumstances where they can only get out on that weekend. But there's, like, that unwritten rule, that, like, common respect.
It's common respect.
It's just one of those things. So
if you can stay away. If you can't, I would just say, like, be respectful and yield to those guys. I mean, it is their living. I know we all watch them, and I know there's jealousy involved, like, but just yield. Let them do their job. They're not going to sit there. They're not going to catch every fish on your hole. Like,
not possible.
Yeah. Just think about it. So, if it was you, think about how you would want somebody to treat you in that situation, and then reciprocate that to those folks.
Yeah. So before you jump into day 2, which is
that's where we're at. We're in day 2.
Hang on. Let's rewind real quick. I mean, we got to talk some deets here.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, angler number 1, day number 1. What was your, as a marshal, you know, like Pete's talking about marshaling here. I don't know if we made that clear at the beginning, but like marshaling, you know, with Unleashed Series Angler, what did that conversation look like at the very beginning? Was there a conversation? Was there rules in the boat? Was there expectations, things like that? How did that conversation go with you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was lucky. It was super cool. Like, it does depend on who you get, because not everybody's like, we're all humans, right? So people are different. So I got super lucky with both people I got. Chelsea, my wife, got lucky. She got 2 good people. She actually drew John Cruz, who's a personal friend of ours.
That's like her fishing hero,
which was really cool on day 1. So her first time ever marshaling an Elite Series event, she got to go out with somebody who's a friend of ours. Which there's no rule against that. If either John or Chelsea thought that they couldn't be fair, or didn't have the integrity to do that, I know for a fact they both would have spoke up, but they both understood what their job was. But yeah, you're basically there to be a ref. I mean, let's be honest, you're being there to keep them honest, right? But it's super cool. So in that text message, they text you who you're going to be with and your phone number. So like, I hit them up the night before and said, hey, I'm Pete, your marshal tomorrow. What time do you want to meet and where? And then, you know, you have some back and forth. I ended up dumping my day 1 angler in the morning. I was like, hey, you want me to back you in? Like, there's no sense in me standing here. He was like, yeah, if you don't mind. So I dumped him in, parked his truck, came down, and I've never been so nervous backing a boat into a lake in my life. All these people were there to watch blast off, and he was boat 100. So like, he didn't get there early.
But guess what? The boat was wrapped and the truck was wrapped, right?
His truck's not wrapped, no.
But his boat
was wrapped.
So no one knows it was going to be you.
No, but like,
you know,
still windows are down. There's cameras watching, taking video, social media, kids. And I'm like, God, just don't do something stupid. So like, it was probably the slowest I've ever got lined up into a lane. And that the ramp they use there is not, it's only got two ramps. Like, it is not the best in the world.
I don't know which one they went out of. And I don't know which we went.
Dryer Island. It's kind of mid-lake.
Is that on like the big long peninsula in the mid-lake? So that's where we went out of. When I pre-fished down there for our club classic, it was been 7 or 8 years ago. I just put in some random ramp, and it was a gravel road.
I can see that.
I don't think there was an actual ramp, and the water was so low. Like I had to climb on my truck and do some crazy stuff to get the boat back far enough in the water. So I didn't know which they.
So that Dryer Island has 2 little, and they're pretty skinny ramps.
Yep.
And then it's got the big parking lot where they can set all the stuff up for the event. So I get why they do it there, but there is another ramp around the peninsula that's like a 30-second boat ride. So some of the guys put in over there, and then they had to park in the official parking lot to check in and all that. But so got him dumped in. Parked and went down. He picked me up on the dock, and then we just had a conversation, just get to know each other. Like, you know, the guy I had is fairly new to the Elites. He's not a rookie. He's been around for a couple of years, but you know, kind of said, hey, I you know, obviously I don't know you that well, but I know, you know, I've followed you. I've seen you do well in these derbies, and I know you're from Minnesota. So we just talked about family a little bit, got to know each other, and kind of break down of what his plan was for the day. Which was cool because you got to kind of get in their way of thinking. It's a herring lake, so I automatically assume like we're gonna go chase a herring bite in the morning. He's like, I'm boat 100. We're not gonna get a herring bite. I'm not even gonna go look because I know that every herring spot that I have is gonna have a boat or 4.
Right. Yeah.
So he had some other stuff, so he knew he was gonna do that, and then he called. He's like, I'm gonna do that for maybe 2 hours, and then I'm gonna go I found some of these fry garters in deeper water and a few fish on beds, and that's what I'm going to go do the rest of the day. And I was like, okay. And that's what we did. Like,
so before you moved to day 2,
Mhm.
so were you cognizant about what you ate that night? Where you're like, gosh, hope I don't have to go number 2.
I actually did not eat anything the night before. Oh no, I did. No, I didn't really pay attention to that.
You don't want to be like Jordan Leave on live taking a leak. Did you see that?
So that was one of the things somebody asked me today, like, what'd you learn? And I was like, I learned that Elite Series anglers don't even stop fishing to pee. Every single one that I was with did that. Jordan Lee showed it on live. They all just flop it out and they just keep fishing.
But, you know,
Like, they don't take the time to make sure, like, we'll go to the back of the boat. Nope. They look around. There's nobody there. Like, they don't even, like, the guy I was with the first day didn't even tell me. All of a sudden, I'm standing up on the back deck and I'm like taking pictures and they're fishing. Next thing I know, I just hear water running and I look and he's just up there fishing, taking a leak. And
what impressed me about seeing Jordan do that, he caught the fish.
I know.
And the one time I went to set the hook doing that, it did not end up the same way.
Yeah. Like, was impressive.
So what you're saying is never buy a used pair of pants from an Elite Series angler.
There's probably some tinkle stains.
We're gonna have to ask a demonstration from these guys.
It was, dude. I mean, and Chelsea said the same thing. Like, both people she was with never even stopped fishing. They just, they warned her because she was a female, but it's like, they're not going to take the 2 minutes. There is not a single thing those guys do
that's inefficient,
that was not efficient or took even a second away. You know, people are always like, why do they have 7 rods on their deck? If they had a frayed line on a drop shot, there was no retying that. Like, they picked up the other rod and fished with that one. Eventually, if they run down to where they can't, then they'll retie, take a couple, seconds to retie, but it's all super calculated. There's no wasted movement. They don't waste time fishing unproductive water, as in if they didn't get bit in practice or haven't, they don't stay there. Now, if they knew there's fish around, they would stay in an area. And that was another thing I learned. Like, just because, and I'll talk about it more when we get into day 2. We sort of already started on day 2, but like, they didn't waste time in unproductive areas, but just because it wasn't productive right when they were there didn't mean they didn't fish it. If they got fish there the day before, if they got bit in practice, they knew fish were there, they fished it. So they would break that water down. They didn't waste time anywhere where they didn't get bit, whether it was history or not. Like, they just didn't spend their time there. So I really got to see that more on day 2, because day 1, the angler I was with sort of knew what they were going to do. And executed that plan. They did on day 2 too, but so he kind of got into that. So day 2 we talked, and he did have a herring bite the day before, but very different weather conditions. So day 1 we had wind, we had clouds, no sun. Day 2 they missed an hour of the daylight bite because they blast off at 7, which there was a lot of not happy people about that. But that was a move Bass made for safety. They blast off every tournament at 7. So you missed that whole 6 to 7 window. So by the time we got to his area where he had the herring bite, there was no herring bite. There really weren't even any herring around. But this is where it kind of clicked for me, was he knew there were fish there because they were there the day before. He said it looked like World War II the day before. There were fish blowing up everywhere around his boat. So he settled into how he wanted his boat positioned. And he made about 3 casts and he caught like a pound and a quarter. And he was like, okay, they're here. Made a couple more casts, caught like a 3. He was like, yep, they're still here. Went a little bit, didn't get any more bites. So we went and checked a couple other little points in the area, nothing. He ran a little section of bank just to see and ended up catching another small fish. And he's like, I could probably do this all day and catch 5, but I don't think they're gonna be the right ones. And he goes, I think we're gonna run back over where we started and just see. We ran back over there. He positioned the boat. He pulled down. He made a cast, and he caught a 4.5 on that very first cast. And I have really good video that I'll release once we say who this is, of him like coming back here was the right move. So decisions, right? We've talked about it. He made a decision to go back there.
Did that angler? So for day 2 with that angler getting up there late, I assume it was a later boat draw. And
he was sort of middle of the road day 1, so he was still sort of middle. He only missed like 20. Like slid 20 one way or the other.
Okay.
So it wasn't a huge deal.
So you're missing like an hour and 20 minutes. So do you think the herring spawn was going on and just missed it?
I don't think it was where he was at, because I mean, if you look at day 2 in general, the weights were lower except for Patrick and a few other guys.
They just weren't spawning.
It was a lot different.
Because I was going to ask if you had a conversation with them or picked his brain.
Oh yeah.
because because we're always told like during a normal shad spawn, like when it's done, like you just need to leave the area for the most part. Because we've all talked about the mistake, and obviously that wasn't the case there with the herring spawn because they were still there.
Yeah, and he said even a shad spawn, you can still catch them. Just most guys don't
You
want
just
to
gotta back
adjust
off.
to how they want to catch them because they want to fish how they caught them in the morning on top water or swim jig or
Right.
whatever it was, and they don't want to back off with a drop shot.
Right.
But yeah, so it wasn't there. There were some fish that came up every once in a while to feed. They were actually feeding on pin minnows, like little tiny minnows. And later in the day, when I was with an angler who's been around for a while on day 2, he finally turned his forward facing on, and we found the balls of the herring, but they were way offshore in the grass. They weren't spawning, and there wasn't anything but stripers around them. Like the largemouth had sucked down into that grass. So we sat on that spot. He ended up with 4, not much weight. And then he was like, we're going to go check a couple other spots. There's probably going to be boats on them, but I'm going to go look anyway. So that's what we did. And then before we left, he's like, I'm going to go back into that starting spot one more time. We ran in there, sat down. He made like 3 casts and caught his 5th fish. And it wasn't anything special, but he was like, all right, I'm going to sit here for another 45 minutes. And then we're making a run. I was like, okay. So 45 minutes and you get another bite. He said, okay, we're making a run. And that's when things got interesting.
Oh yeah.
So we're running out of this creek at 70 miles an hour. And I got ejected from the Elite Series Anglers boat at 70. Without going into too much detail, there'll be GoPro footage here eventually once he gets it broke down. But we were running in some wake, kind of riding troughs, so you get a little bit side to side. There was a large boat anchored out ahead of us, kind of in the middle of the mouth of this creek, and a boat come up and cross in front of us throwing a wake. And when we caught their wake. When we came down, we did, if you don't boat or if you do, you bow hook. So the bow of the boat hooked the water and tried to spin the boat 180 degrees. And the force of coming up, down, and spinning in a matter of seconds was greater than my body could react to. And most folks can react to. And I exited the boat at a high rate of speed. I don't know that I was ever scared because I didn't have time to get scared. There was kind of like a moment where I realized I was going out, and then I was in the water. And life jacket did its job. Always wear your PFD running, regardless if you've done it a million times. If you're driving, make sure your kill switch is worn. Luckily, the angler saved the boat, or he would have been in the water with me. Somehow he stayed in the boat and held on to it, or the boat could have ended up on top of us. I don't know what would happen if he'd have got tossed too. So he was able to save the boat. I popped up, lost my flip-flops. They were floating, luckily. Lost my hat. Had a Yeti water jug. They will float, if you didn't know.
Okay.
Yeti water jugs do float, so it was floating there. And I was just kind of like, huh.
Well, that just happened.
Yeah. And I think I literally said that in my head, like, that just happened. And I looked, and the boater was coming back, and he was yelling, like, hey, are you okay? Like, dropping an F-bomb. I was like, I'm good, bro. Like, I think you got a ladder? He was like, yeah. He was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. So I swam around to the back of his boat, and I climbed up in, and was pretty sore in my back, still am, but everything was working. I was breathing fine.
It was working.
Heart rate was up a little bit. I had that, I was honestly the whole day I was just waiting for the adrenaline dump. I'm like, at some point I'm going to have an adrenaline dump and I am not going to be able to move. And it never really happened. Like I was shaking, the adrenaline, all that. Eventually it went away, but like the pain never got worse. I think I might have cracked, but definitely bruised some ribs on the backside, which is really sucks to try to sleep, but I mean, it is what it is. So he was like, are you good? I was like, yeah, wiggle your fingers and toes kind of deal. I did. They got my flip-flops, and I lost my hat. It did end up getting it back eventually at the end of the day. Somebody that saw it happen came over to help.
And that was a OneCast hat.
Yeah, I still got it. It's in the truck right now.
Yeah.
It was the OneCast. It was one of the tan ones. You can get one just like it. Might give you some protection.
Yeah.
Did you call your dad and thank him after for the experience in the Lake Murray?
No. When I did,
that's what saved you.
When I did call my dad that night, I I said, he was like, how was today? He knew I was with, he was pretty excited because of who it was. And I was like, it was good. And you and him have something in common now. And he was like, what's that? I said, you both tried to kill me in a boat. And he was like, oh yeah, how'd he do that? And I said, well, I got ejected at 70 miles an hour. And he goes, are you serious? I was like, yeah. So I told him the whole story and he's laughing. I'm laughing. I made a joke of it from the beginning. It's a super serious situation, but I wasn't going to sit there and dwell on what could have happened because it didn't. Like, I got super lucky. I'm blessed. I understand that the good Lord was looking out for me. But I'm not going to let it keep me from getting into a boat again or doing what I love to do. Like, it was a freak thing. I put zero blame on the boater. Like, nothing they could have done different. Just it was one of those things, and it was a not a great way to be reminded. But it was a good reminder that things happen fast on the water. And, when we're out there doing what we love to do and to just take the steps you can to be safe. So wear your PFD, make sure it's buckled, zipped, whatever kind you have is ready to go. Make sure it's serviced because I don't know. I mean, I probably would have got back to the surface because I was able to swim. But if I'm knocked out or broken leg or broken arm, and some stuff started to come back to me as your brain clears. If anybody's ever been through anything, there's definitely a fog around that because it happens so fast. But then small details will start to come back. And I distinctly remember in the boat, there's a rail and I'm holding on to it. And I remember realizing I was going to go and consciously thinking in a millisecond, if I don't let go of this, I'm going to break
your arm. Yep.
So I let go of that and just let myself go into the water because I knew if I tried to hold on to that, at worst, I was going to dislocate my shoulder, but I was going to break my arm. So I remember consciously that snapping and doing that and in the water. And then I had a buff on and it sucked to my face. So it felt like I was being waterboarded as I was swimming up. The new inflatables, they're built so they don't go off in the rain. So there is a slight delay before they inflate. So there was a moment of is this thing going to go off? And I'm trying to remember, you're trying to remember anybody that's been in a stressful situation, you're going through your checks. First I made sure everything was a core check. Everything was working. My hands, I was able to move my legs. I could see. I'm still underwater at this point. I'm everything is at least functioning. I'm not paralyzed. Didn't get knocked out. Now I'm under the water. I'm I got to get to the surface. I'm right side up, I think. So I start kicking. And then I'm is this vest going to inflate? And so I'm go to reach for it. First I had to pull that buff off because I felt like I was being waterboarded. And then I went to reach for it, and it was and then you just shoot to the surface. And I pop up, and then the boater was there. I swam around, climbed up the ladder. The hook chase boat, I forget your name, bud. If you somehow end up watching this, I appreciate you coming over and checking on us and getting my hat back. He had an extra life jacket. Ike was I'll take you. Oh, well, now you know. He was I'll take you back in. Barry.
Mute that.
Yeah, just mute that word real quick. But yeah, he was I'll take you back in. And I was I'm good. It's super hard not to say it. He was I'll take you back in. And I was I'm good, man. Honestly, I'm good. I said, I kind of did a triage and I pushed and I was that hurts. It's a rib. It might be broke. It might not. All they're going to do is take an x-ray and give me pain medicine and tell me to take it easy. They're not going to do anything if it is broken. I'm not going to die right now. So keep doing your job. I'm good. The hook dude had an extra life jacket, tossed it in. I put it on and we were back 70 running down the lake to the next spot. We rolled up on there and he caught a little fish on the first cast. Second cast, he hooked about a 4-pounder, lost it right at the boat. So he started to come unspun a little bit. It got super slow there for a little bit after that. And he's I tossed you out of the boat. I can't catch a fish. And, you can't really say anything. You're at a marshal back there. So you can't you can't give any advice or direction or you're not going to be hey, calm down, man. It'll all be good. You're yeah, it sucks right now.
Yeah,
I'm good. Just keep going. They kept checking and apologizing, making sure that I was good. And I'm just do your job. Fished a bunch of stuff, went and checked a couple bed fish and he ended up catching one of them, which did help a little bit. And then the second one never could get it to bite. So didn't waste a bunch of time on it because it wasn't going to help a whole lot. And then just ran points the rest of the day with his crankbait. And then about 10 minutes before he had to be in, he caught a 3.5.
Nice.
That put him into the cut. Without that 3.5, he wouldn't have made the day 3 cut. So that was super cool to catch that fish again at the last minute. They didn't wait. No, there was no time wasted by any of these guys. if they were doing it 4:30, they fished till 4:28. And the last spot, they made sure they were a minute from the ramp.
Wait, when you were floating in the water like a marker buoy, was he casting?
No, there was a bit of panic in his eyes and
I can imagine
some curse words from his mouth.
Yeah.
You know, he said, "I've never done that before." I said, "Me either." And we went from there. He did point out that he had done it to himself before.
Yeah, and if you guys are listening to this and then listen to the next episode, you can Google it. It's definitely worth a Google.
Yeah. Once you find out who it is,
exactly.
But he did do it to himself, and then once he realized I was good, he started making jokes about it, which made me feel better because I didn't want that to be what messed his day up.
Sure,
it was an accident. I'm good, but you know, I flew out of my flip flops. He was like, "Funny thing, I ejected myself twice, and I came out of my shoes both times too." I was like, he was like, "Must be something about hitting the water at 70. You just can't keep them on." I was like, "Yeah, something like that, dude." And then he's like, "You're gonna be sore tomorrow." I was like, "I bet I."
Yeah, you know, I'm so glad we can laugh about it now. You know, like it, obviously, 100% a serious situation. I think the right calls were made. You know, he asked you if you wanted to go back in
multiple times
throughout
right? The day. Yeah.
That rested on his shoulders the entire day, whether or not, you know, but luckily it was nice. It was warm. You were in a relatively clear water fishery, so you could see a little bit. And
the water wasn't 38 degrees.
Yeah. And you know what?
Yep.
You have floating Hobie eyewear. You know what I mean? So no problems there, right?
So if you're on Lake Murray, there is a pair of Hobies floating out there. I promise you they're still floating if somebody didn't find them.
Yeah.
If you find them, keep them and let me know. Or if you know somebody that found them. But because we didn't waste time looking for them. I had another pair. I wasn't going to ask him to stop for even longer. And I know that probably is weird to people, but I just wanted to get back to normal. Like I didn't want to sit there and dwell on it or spend a bunch of time looking for stuff. You know, I wanted him to be able to get back to his job, me to be able to do what I was there to do and just not dwell on it a whole bunch. But you're not supposed to text anybody, but I did. I texted Chelsea and I shot you a text figuring you would get word out to other folks and like, hey, this just happened. I'm good, you know. And then she kind of freaked out and told me I was never allowed to boat again. And then I laughed and said, I don't think that's going to work, but
I'm in it right now.
I'm still in the boat.
Did you dry off real quick running 70 miles an hour everywhere?
It took a little bit because it was pretty chilly in the morning. We had that cold front come through. So it was like in the 50s. So I had my sweats.
I bet that was more miserable being wet and going down the
I don't know because he probably had so much adrenaline going.
Yeah, the initial, I had so much adrenaline. Like, I didn't feel anything, you know, completely dry mouth, like, you know, how your adrenaline response is like, so I didn't really notice it. Probably if I could have, would have sucked. The next run sucked because my pants were still wet. It was a little bit cold, but I had a sun shirt on.
I cannot wait to see this GoPro footage.
I hope it captures it.
There's a mark on your left arm. Is that from anything?
Yeah, I don't know what that's from. I mean, I hit it on something.
Yeah.
There's a mark there. I took the skin off one of my knuckles, and then the bruise hasn't made it to the surface yet on my back, but I know eventually there's going to be one there. Yeah. It's still in there.
So
pretty deep.
You had an awesome day one. You had an awesome day two.
Yeah.
You had, like
super exciting day two.
Extremely eventful, memorable.
Awesome
You know, capturing both day one and day two, and I don't know if you're done with your story, but capturing day one, day two, without letting these anglers like job secrets out there or anything like that. What are some of the biggest things that you learned? Like if you were to take like the top 1, 2, or 3 things that you really learned, you know, for the listeners and, you know, obviously for Ben and I, because we're interested. What do you think those will be?
Fish your strengths. Don't cave just because people are out there using forward facing and you think you have to. My day two guy didn't use it and made day 3 cut fish 3 days in an elite series event. It's like he has a lot of experience on and understands, but he did what he was comfortable doing. There were a couple times he felt like he was wasting time, quote unquote, looking at this stupid machine, and he would pull himself out of that and go back to doing what he was comfortable doing. And I think you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, but you also, being uncomfortable doesn't mean not fishing your strengths. It might mean fishing your strengths differently or in different areas or doing something a little bit different.
Well, it's that old thing, like practice is for practice. So
Yeah.
like, that's when you go try
Well,
your new techniques and searching things.
Yep, you hit the
And
nail on
when
the
it comes to
head.
tournament day, you got to rely on the things that have been working in your strengths.
Right.
You know?
Like I can't fish like Ben Milliken with a glide bait
Yep.
offshore, right? Like that's not who I am. I can fish offshore, but I'm not going to fish that way.
And you might try it on a fun fishing day. You might
Exactly.
try it if you got multiple practice days. You might give it a shot. But if you haven't caught a fish doing that,
Yeah.
you might.
And we're not saying it can't work, right? But you talked about efficiency.
Yeah.
And not wasting time doing anything that you're not comfortable with, or fishing where fish aren't, or fishing dead water, whatever the case may be. So that's a great lesson. Is there anything else that anyone else would be interested in hearing?
Fish your strength was definitely the number one.
Yeah.
One thing. You don't need to put a lot of stock into dock talk. Like,
Yep.
kind of goes into fish your strength, but don't waste your time chasing somebody else's fish. And I'm not saying don't get information from your buddies about where, like, areas they're catching them, depths, structure, things like that. But if they tell you, go to this point, put your boat right here and do this and you'll catch them, you're probably not gonna be able to do that. Right.
Sure.
Like, so don't get caught up in that dock talk. Like, it's cool to pay attention to what's going on around you, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that. Like, fish for the fish that you found. Don't worry about the fish that other people are fishing for. And then, like, just, you got a whole day, even getting to the end of the day. Like, it all kind of goes together. The biggest thing I learned was the mental fortitude. Even the angler on day 2 that was sort of coming unraveled because everything that went down never stopped fishing.
Right.
Like, was frustrated, even said, I have no idea what the F I'm doing. It's like, I've never fished before. Like, was definitely in their head a little bit, but they never stopped fishing. They kept trying things that they caught fish in practice doing. And then eventually it paid off. But like, just sticking with it, not getting frustrated an hour before and just being like, I'm done, I'm going into weigh-in. Like, use that time, because if you continue to do what has worked, it's going to work. And it only takes one bite. It took one bite that day to take him from definitely not to maybe making it, to 100%. Like, I'm going to fish tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Like,
that was worth thousands and thousands of dollars.
And points. Like, makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's kind of been like the narrative all season long, both for our tournament season and then just in general, is like, that mindset, good decision making, fishing up until the last minute. We saw that on bugs. We
fished our strengths.
And we fished our strengths. Like, we have fished this entire season, which has been a very good season, and we'll get into it here in just a minute, this last event. But it's been about decisions. It's been about, doing our best to not spin out. There's been some frustrations and stuff like that, but I think you're right. Like, we fished what we know. We didn't try to fish for anyone else's fish. And, right now we are in the lead for Angler of the Year, in the Fishers and Men's Central.
This is dropping, and we have a tournament in 2 days that's going to determine whether we get to raise that AOI banner or not. So hopefully we can keep the momentum rolling. But
so while
we can't, I can only say we're in this position because of you, because this last one was critical, and I was not there because I was getting ejected out of it.
So while Pete was off, gallivanting around, skipping across the water like a black bear, getting thrown out of a certain model of boat, I was out fishing, our 5th season event on a lake here, a few hours north. And man, I'll tell you what, I won't drag it out, but practice for me started on a Thursday, and it was, I had a lot of confidence going into that with a shallow water bite. However, Pete knows me very well, I'm not a one pattern type of guy. Like, I like to find multiple patterns that are going on, unless it's just certainly just an offshore summer schooling bite, right?
Or a spawn bite.
Or a spawn bite, right?
Yeah.
And even so, we saw that with our last derby, you know, like we had a couple patterns. So, you know, practice went really well. You know, Mike and Nick were up there. They were doing their thing. They were fishing their strengths. They had a really good practice. You know, traditionally this season.
And they had the AOI lead going into this one, and we were in second.
Yep, that's right. And so, you know, traditionally we'll practice on a Thursday, and then on a Friday, you know, we have to get out. We go out to Bugs Island based on where we stay, and we go and we fun fish. Well, Mike and Nick did that. I wasn't confident enough that it was going to go down the way I thought it was going to go down, so I went out to said lake. And you know, there's no off limits period for the trail that we're fishing. There are off limits periods for the same trail, but in different series, different divisions. But for ours, there's not, which, you know, there's an advantage and a disadvantage to that. So, you know, Friday I was out there for a half a day. And I'll tell you what, from what happened on Thursday to what happened on Friday, it was like the fish changed overnight. And so drastically. So that shallow water bite that I had on Thursday was non-existent for me, which made me change my thought process on where I thought I could catch 5, because you got to catch 5. And so Friday during practice, it was great, man. I went out and, you know, I ran into our good buddy, Jesse Wise. If you haven't listened to the episode with Jesse Wise, like, go back and check that out. Jesse is an absolute local hammer here. He fishes at NPFL. He's actually doing his deal, putting in some work down at Lake Hartwell. So you'll know how he fared out on the, when you listen to this episode. But, practice on Friday, I fished for half a day. I found what I wanted to find. I had confidence in it. I knew it was going to be a boat draw deal. Luckily, we don't have 103 anglers in the trail, but we do have a good amount of people that fish it. So, you know, Friday during the meeting, you know, I was boat number 3. So I got really fortunate, which means I have a 3:00 check-in. Fisherman does a fantastic job of not blasting people off before safe light. I know people get frustrated with that, just like you talked about with the elites, but at the end of the day, you're fishing under that organization. They are liable for you.
Yep.
You do have to carry up to a certain amount of liability coverage for your insurance, right? There's a lot that goes into the business portion of it. So thankfully, you know, got boat number 3, you know, had a conversation with Mike and Nick, had a conversation with Jesse about where I was starting. I think that's a very respectful thing to do, especially if you guys have found the same fish.
Yep.
Right. And I am completely open to sharing water with people, right? Because I understand, like, there's limited fish. I'm not like that. So if especially
on the lake,
right,
we were on, because it's a small
lake.
It's
a lot smaller reservoir. So, you know, Jesse had found, I don't know if Jesse found those fish, but he definitely knows that there's those types of fish there. So we blast off. You know, I make that run. It didn't take very long, and I get up to the spot, and yeah, man, I just commenced to catching them.
You caught one of your first casts.
So very first cast, I caught one. A lot of people, David, I know you're going to listen to this. You're going to say you got to burn that first cast. I caught one. It was a keeper. I won't say what I caught it on, but I caught it. And then
how'd that confidence boost go when you caught one on the first cast?
So that was awesome, because I knew what I was looking for. And, you know, like, and yes, full disclosure, 100% forward facing sonar, utilize that technology from blast off. And there was a gap in there, but basically the entire day, right? I knew exactly what I was looking for, but more importantly, what I was looking for was how they were behaving, right? Mm-hmm. The fish behavior is everything, you know? So, yeah, I caught 5 fish relatively early. I had about 9 pounds in the box, you know, and, you know, in this trail, like Pete and I, we text Mike and Nick and let them know how we're doing. They text back. They said they had, I think, 3 or 2 in the box or whatever. And then I made a decision to leave. Because I didn't know if what I found on Friday shallow wasn't going to be there Saturday.
Well, that, and those first fish you caught, you said 5 for 9.
Right. They were small.
So they were small. So you were trying to make a decision to find those couple kickers.
So during practice, I was able to get some fish keyed in on
CALL call.
Yeah, CALL call. They were tracking a certain bait that I was using. I was using a big glide bait to pull some fish out, right? That's what I was doing. Like big fish will follow glide baits. They may not eat them, but they'll follow them. And you heard that, when Seth was on. So I went down to hit some high percentage areas to find some bigger fish, didn't find them. And I made the decision to pull that trolling motor up and run right back up the lake because I didn't have any confidence. So I think I spent about 30 minutes doing that. And I ran back up the lake. Thank the Lord that nobody was sitting on that spot.
Yeah.
Because apparently on that lake, it was like a juice hole, which I was not privy to. So I went back to that spot and I started noticing fish behavior changing. The wind had picked up from the north. The fish were positioning a little bit differently, and I commenced to jig head minnowing these fish. That's exactly how I caught them. Then I got a text message from Pete saying I just got ejected from Beep and Beep's boat. And I dropped my rod and I went full thumb throttle on the phone. I was like, are you serious? Are you okay? And then like later on, Jesse and his partner came up and they were fishing close to me. They had hit some high percentagers. And I was like, hey, Pete just got ejected out of so-and-so's boat. And they're like, are you serious? And then Mike and Nick later then came up and I told them. And so, rumors spread like wildfire. But there was a point where fishing, I was calling out, 112s for 114s and going like that. And I was like, I got to do something different, right? Because the fish that I'm catching, the caliber is the same in the school. But if anybody knows anything about schooling fish, a lot of times big fish hang out below those schools. And so I made a change and I upsized my weight to bust through these schools a little bit faster. And I started targeting fish that are about 15 to 20 foot deeper than the schooling fish that were suspended. And I can't make this up, man. I really can't. I looked at the sky and I said, Lord, will you please bless me with a 5-pounder? And I kid you not, I set the hook and I caught a 468. That cat, like that, I was vertically jigging. And that fish came up and I don't have a net man because he's too busy getting wet. and I put that fish in the boat and I just kind of took a step back and I was like, there's no way that happened. Right. So that took me from 9 pounds to like 12 or 13 pounds. And then I commenced to just upgrading fish all day. It was unfortunate. That fish was tongue hooked. Listen, guys, it happens. I took, the fizz kit, because I was catching these fish deep. I fizzed my fish. Unfortunately, that big fish did expire. Luckily, those fish go to a good cause. They get eaten and stuff. So by the time I got back to weigh in, I had 15 pounds, 10 ounces, right? Took a quarter-pound penalty. That was a 1485 weigh-in. Congratulations to the winners. They had 24 pounds. Second place had 16 pounds. And, we were able to get a top 3 finish. And it was a good day and it jumped us up in the points, but it was really all about decisions. And I actually left the spot earlier because I saw somebody trolling back that was part of the trail. And so I stopped to help him and tow him back. And I knew that, I took a huge gamble, right? Like it was either, could I stay a little bit longer and catch another big fish? It was potentially could happen, but I also looked like there's somebody that's stranded out there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He had a trolling motor and everything. Unfortunately, he didn't have a rope, but we were able to call the tournament director and he knew what was going on. So luckily that guy made it back. And yeah, man, that's where we stand. So it was all about decisions that day. It was all about fishing my strengths, just like you were talking about. It was about efficiency. And I will tell you, Pete does all the fish management when it comes to being in the boat, whether it's his boat or my boat. And I called the wrong fish. Luckily, it didn't hurt me at the end of the day because I upgraded everything out of the box. So everything I caught, I got rid of, which was a really great feeling. My confidence was up. And, but yeah, man, like I was going through and I had to use the coal beam on fish. I had to fizz them. I had to G-juice them. I put ice in there, a little bit of ice in there. Like, and that's like, thinking about like, you're down there with the Elite Series guys, like there ain't nobody there to help you, so being efficient, knowing the layout of your boat, posturing your equipment the right way so you can expedite the process. I learned a lot about how inefficient I was that day, right? Like, I mean, I was efficient, but I was like, I'm going to change this. Now my bump board is in a different position. My scale is in a different position. My call tags are reorganized from left to right and not right to left. Like, there's a whole bunch of like little micro things that I changed about how I'm going to fish in the future. And I think that, you know, and Mike and Nick, you know, they made a comment about like learning this year. And I can tell you that, like, as an angler, as a competitor, as a travel partner, as a boater, as everything, like, I've learned so much this year.
You know, you're talking about the coaling and weighing your fish in there at the live well. That is something we should start asking some of these anglers when they're on, because, you know, we watch a lot of videos. Everyone does it different. People like Scott Martin just chuck them in the live well.
Yep.
And then he's got to get them out later and then weigh them and all. You have other people that will weigh every single one. They've got a whiteboard. You got people who use coal tags. Other people, they don't. They got to go fish them out. And to me, that seems very inefficient.
Yeah.
But you got very successful guys doing it. You got guys who will lift up all compartments to build that wall. Yeah. You know, and
skeeters, you can do that with skeeter boats. But I would say, you know, that's a great point. I will tell you that I think every situation is fissuational, right? It's a fissuational. So, like, if you're on a blueback herring lake, like Lake Murray, and you're constrained, like, you know, you have seconds to make a precise cast, that in that moment, I might just throw them in the box. But if I'm fishing a school or a bed fishing tournament or something like that, or I'm just beating the bank or whatever, I want to take the time to weigh the fish, because I think it takes more time on the back side to weigh those fish.
You gotta get them out, then you gotta weigh them.
Yeah. So, but again, you know, everybody does it different.
Yeah.
I just know that during this tournament, I learned a lot about myself, because I've been, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I've been fortunate to have Pete in the boat, or Ben in, and he's just like, I have a special way of calling. He said that during one tournament. You said that, you're like, I have a very particular way of it. But now you need to spread that love to me.
Yeah, I mean,
I need to learn how to do it.
Yeah, and I'll spread to everybody. It's pretty easy. I run my call tags left to right.
Yep.
If we're on schooling fish in the morning, I don't weigh them. I'll just call tag them and put them in. And I always go in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is always my call fish. And then when I do call at the end of the day, so if I call 3, I put 3 on the fish that I'm going to put in, and I release that fish. So 6 is always my call.
Yeah.
I don't use that for anything else. There's a few things I picked up with the elites that I'm going to adopt. Regardless of what your scale says, check with a call beam.
Yes.
I don't do that right now. I'm going to, and I know it seems like that half an ounce might not matter, but in the grand scheme of things, a half an ounce could be the difference between first and second.
Yeah.
So that was something I picked up. One of the anglers I was with weighed every fish, not immediately, but he eventually went back and weighed and then weighed everyone. The other angler I was with never weighed a fish, does not weigh him. He only uses a call beam.
Really?
Yep. And
as I do have a question here. I think we're probably getting close to the end. How much were you complicit in lying on to Bass Track?
Oh, I mean, whatever they told me is what I put in.
you just answered.
Yeah. I mean, whatever they told me is what I put in.
Sandbagging.
Now there are some,
because I will tell you,
I did learn and I didn't know so Bass, as an incentive to be accurate with Bass Track for the viewers, whoever is the most accurate at every tournament gets $1,000 check.
What?
Oh, that's good.
So some guys care.
Patrick Walters does not care.
What I want to know about Patrick, if you happen to hear this, I love you. You had a cameraman in your boat that sandbagged by 10 pounds on day one on Bass Track.
That's what I was saying. It was like
17 pounds, and he brought like 20.
Well, did you? And I saw it. I think at this point it's a meme with him, because at one point I saw a video where he had like a 5.5. And he goes, put it in as a 2.
Well, I know they were,
but you have to put it in with the. So to be fair, whether you're a cameraman or just somebody that's doing it, if you know it's a 7-pounder and they tell you to put it as a pound,
you put it in as pound.
You have to put it in. You can't guess what it is, because if you're way off,
yeah. I mean that makes sense.
So you have to go with what they.
I just couldn't believe he sandbagged it.
But both anglers I had were, one was over slightly, the one that didn't use a scale was over by a little bit, and the one that used a scale was under a little bit. So they were both fairly close and not over by much. Like The one I had that was over by like half a pound. The other one was under by like a quarter of a pound. So it was super close.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah,
I would,
if they tell you a 6 pounder is a 2, you got to put a 2.
I would gladly, if I was in Patrick Walters' situation, which he dominates. We all know that.
Absolutely.
He is a dominant angler, no matter where, if he's in the MPFL or he's in the elites. But I would almost imagine he's like, I don't care about that $1,000. The suspense, the drama, the excitement,
It makes good TV,
right?
man.
It makes good
entertainment.
entertainment.
Well, they got to the point on live. They're like, yeah, that's not right. He's got more like,
Did they?
they
I mean, I didn't get to see any of the live coverage.
that or maybe well, it was live coverage, but I may have watched it after the fact on like the midday review.
Okay.
I think they said something like one of the days. Yeah, I know Bass Trek's got like 17 or 18. He's got like 21 or 22.
When his boat
they were
is
talking
sitting
about it.
sideways.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that, but I mean, it is about entertainment, right? So like, you know, building that suspense, if that's what he wants to do, like that's super cool. It's just like you're sitting back, you know, you're doing what they tell you essentially. Like you don't want to
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
you can't go against the grain. So
yeah.
I do.
now that I know that's how it works, like I'm not going to be as hard on people for sandbagging because there's nothing you can do about it.
Oh,
Like,
it's
if
totally-
they tell you. So
It's totally on the anglers.
It's money.
They're the ones either put it in themselves or they tell somebody.
Yeah.
So
I want to give one shout out. You know, at the end of that tournament, you know, Jesse Wise fished that tournament because you know he fished the fish.
Oh yeah, Fisherman. Yep.
your tournament.
But I gotta give there's a lot of these guys. I gotta give them a lot of credit, and I'm shooting credit to Jesse on this one. He literally left the weigh-in and drove straight to Lake Hartwell.
Yep.
Like and I'm like, man, that is some serious dedication, but that's what it takes, right? To be great in this
Well, look
industry.
at
So
Patrick, John Cox. I mean, it's not a far drive, but they had to leave straight, missed 2 days of practice
That's
for
right.
Patrick,
Yeah.
drive straight to Hartwell,
because they had to
get a day of practice or two in,
That's
and
right.
then go into an MPFL.
So that just goes to show you, like, efficiency is everything.
It is.
Right? Because they got to have their stuff squared away for the next derby getting ready to kick off, and there can't be any flaws. You know what I mean? Especially when you're on lakes like Murray or Hartwell or Lanier, where there's blueback herring and stuff like that. Is there blueback herring in Lanier? I don't know. Anyway, side topic, but yeah, man, I'll close it out from my end on this. I am super glad you're okay. I'm super glad that we're doing well in Angler of the Year. I'm super glad that your wife had an awesome anniversary gift of being paired with one of her favorite anglers, and that her husband gets to come home at the end of the day. And I'm very thankful that you're back here and that we're able to do this episode. So it's been a good year so far, man. Let's keep the train rolling.
Yes, sir. Ben?
Yeah, I'm glad you're back. Glad you only got a little wet, little bruise, nothing worse than that. I'm glad you learned a few things. Been picking your brain here. Going to pick a few more off air.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll bring the juice. Maybe not. We'll just have to see. And then I'm looking forward to this weekend where all of us will be getting out with Take the Warriors. So
Yep. No, I appreciate everybody here. Obviously, you guys checking in. Ben offered if I need anything. Same with Trey. Like, appreciate that. And I really appreciate all you that are listening that reached out. I had a bunch of messages and comments and stuff from folks that I don't know personally, but I know you through this. So I really appreciate that. All the new friends we've made through the show, every single one of them reached out as the news got to them. So I really appreciate all of that. It means a lot. If you're the praying kind, some prayers my way for further protect, because I think I used them all up on this go around.
Yeah, your 9 lives are up, bro.
No, I did a count, so I think I've used 4 of my 9. So I got 5 left. I've got the near drowning in Erie when I was a kid. I fell 17 and a half feet out of a tree stand and only cut my arm. So that was one I'm counting. I had my intestines rupture and had to have emergency surgery and was really close to death on that one, and then getting chucked out of a boat. So 4.
Okay. Yeah.
We're at 4 right now. So I got 5 to go. I'd prefer to never use another one until it is time to go. But definitely could use some
Fishing is a contact sport.
It can be. It was certainly was that day on Lake Murray, much more than I ever thought it was going to be. But I just appreciate everybody reaching out, all the thoughts, prayers, whatever it is that you do. I never expected that from so many folks, but it really means a lot to me to have that. And appreciate y'all listening. Looking forward to the next couple episodes. Both anglers I was with are going to be on the show at some point, so we'll give them the opportunity to give some juice if they so choose. I think they both will. They're both really, really good people. So looking forward to that. We've also got some other awesome guests and stuff lined up here coming. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say. Wear your PFDs if you're running. I see it all the time. Guys won't put them on. Don't wear their kill switch. The angler I was with when that happened has been doing this for more than 20 years. So it's somebody that's been around and it never happened to them before in that way. It can happen to anybody, no matter how much experience you think you have, no matter how much time you have in the water. I've been in and around running boats for 38 years, and I never had getting ejected while running on my card of things that happen. So,
and sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Yeah,
it's
there
other
was
people,
literally nothing.
Other factors involved, and sometimes, fortunately, it just wasn't your time.
But what you guys can do is help us continue building a culture of anglers helping anglers, one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.